Dawn&Steve plus Erskin Anavitarte today of Erskin Music. And we are grateful that you are here as well to be an additional plus one. It's so important that the family's together. Speaking of family, here he is. Here he is.
My brother from another mother.
Yes.
Glad to be here. Fashionably late. I'm just glad that I made it.
Oh, my goodness. It's so good to have you on Dawn&Steve Plus and to introduce you to some of our friends that may not know Erskin yet.
Yeah.
And if we were going to say Erskin Anavitarte's passion is...
Jesus.
And then
Of
everything
course.
flows
Yeah, I was going to
down
say,
from that.
of course, we got to start there.
Let me ask you another question, because it was a question that my husband asked his Bible study group the other day. If you had one thing that you were most looking forward to, what would you say?
Of today's show or in life? Or is this one of those I can only imagine kind of things?
It's open-ended. One thing that you're most looking forward to.
I think maybe I would answer that question by simply saying, I'm looking forward to seeing what the Lord does with the investments that have been made in my life, right? Because I've done a lot of things. I've had a lot of people invest in me, and in the area of discipleship, you have people who are making small deposits, and there are people who are almost silent benefactors who have been praying for you for years. And there's been so many people over the years when I've been doing music and ministry that have made investments. Some of them have gone home to glory. I'm interested to see how those prayers manifest themselves and what that ultimately becomes.
Ooh, that's really good.
That's such a great answer.
That's my answer. That's
a great answer.
Well, and he followed it up with this in the same Bible study. He said, okay, as a Christian, what are you most looking forward to?
Well,
You
kind of
would
the same
say-
thing. That's the same
Right.
thing.
You would,
Same
but
grid.
most of
Yep.
us are like, well, I'm looking forward to this. And then when he quantified it like that, then we all went, heaven.
Yeah.
So your answer is the most deep that I've heard so far.
Okay. Well, I wasn't trying to be deep. I was just simply trying. I was just simply
You're
trying
just
to
deep by nature, my friend.
You are.
simply just
Yes.
trying to enjoy the fact that there's, just thankful. I was listening to a sermon on the way over here on being thankful, and that's one of the characteristics of a Christian is we should be very grateful for what the Lord has done.
Yeah. Well, he's done a lot in your life, but you probably can think back to a time where he was not as active in your life. You maybe didn't know him. Life was going a different direction.
Yes.
When did you meet Jesus?
That's a good analysis of what the Proverbs say. There's a way that seems right to a man, but in the end of the ways of death, right? So that was my young years when just this whole culture of church and Christianity just seemed bizarre. I think as a believer and having been a believer for a while, I think it's still bizarre. I really do think that there's some things that unless you know, you don't know. Like you come to the Lord's Supper and it's like, what are we doing here? I'm a little bit the language here and baptism. What are we doing here? What does this Christian life look like?
Yeah.
And so I really do think that period of life kind of set up the life that I'm living now, because I can take things that seem strange to me and project that that's strange to other people as well.
Sure.
And so I've enjoyed, seeing the transition take place in my life. It is true. It is. I'm here to announce it is true. If anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away, and the new has come.
Preach.
And that transition took place in my life around the age of 12.
Okay.
And it's hard to imagine how much trouble I could get into.
He's a little bit of a troublemaker.
It's poised to get into before the age of 12, but that was certainly the course of my life. And, I became a believer the same way that anybody else becomes a believer. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of Christ.
Yeah.
And, to dovetail what we were talking about, a lot of that thankfulness is people who had invested the word of God in me. I remember my Sunday school teacher, Miss Black. I didn't want to learn those verses. I didn't even want to be at Sunday school. I didn't even want to be around those other kids. I didn't like any of the stuff. The suit that I was wearing, none of that stuff. But she would bribe us with candy, and she would say, if you memorize these verses of scripture, I'm going to give you some candy. And I thought, well, that seems like a pretty reasonable deal. I can memorize a couple of words and
Get some candy.
jump through all the hoops and everything. And so it's things like that I remember and quite fond of, being grateful for those things.
I'm sorry. I was just having a moment of thinking of little Erskin, younger
In a
Erskin.
suit.
Little
in a
Erskin,
suit.
Little Erskin with a suit and an
No.
afro and had a Jerry curl at one point.
Not wanting to go to church. And,
No way.
So
no
did
way.
your parents take you to church? I mean,
So, yeah, it was one of those things where my parents sent me to church because we lived right around the corner from the church. And so they sent me to Sunday school. And that was the part that I was violently reacting to
Yeah.
because I had to walk to church in these very uncomfortable penny loafers. And I had to wear this very uncomfortable suit with a very uncomfortable clip on to go into a church that smelled very bad. And it was sometimes too hot because the air conditioner couldn't keep. So you know those old
This is in
funeral
Texas,
home
right?
funeral home fans, you up in that thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is in Texas.
Texas.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
Texas. Deep South. So there was just a lot of things that I didn't like about that situation. And so I had to go to Sunday school. They weren't even there yet. But then we did the Sunday school thing, and then we had to stay for church. Now, you know, black churches, they go on all day long. And
Yeah.
so it's already a couple of hours just for Sunday school, and then the church service starts, and then the church service goes and goes and goes. You take the first offering, the second offering, the third offering. But, you know, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all good now, right?
It's all good
All
now.
good. All
That's
good
right.
now.
It wasn't. But, you know, what kind of confidence do we put in 12-year-olds? I mean, there was a couple of 12-year-old kings in the Bible, but normally they don't get elected to high office.
That's true.
No, but 12-year-old Erskin meets Jesus, and was there a massive change right away? Was it a gradual thing? Like,
I would say, you know, it kind of had to be massive because the direction that my life was going, like, you know, I say I got into a lot of trouble before the age of 12. There was a lot of trouble in those waters, and I was living in Austin, Texas at that particular time, and I was kind of a latchkey kid. Didn't really have much direction, and so my direction was, you want to fight? You talking to me? You talking to me, sucker?
Yeah.
It was kind of one of those things, and so just the fights were proliferating, you know, disrespect, getting, you know, kicked out of school, all manner of things like that. And my mom was a single parent at that time, and so she's trying to figure out how to do all this, and she wasn't a very good parent at all. And I don't say that at all to disrespect her. She would tell you right now if she was on this broadcast, Mom, if you're watching this, you know you tell these people. I was not a very good parent at that particular time. And then she had boyfriends in and out, and it was just a very troubled time in life. I didn't like anybody. I wanted to beat everybody up. I didn't like school. And so the Lord really did a work in my life that was a profound work, and it had to be.
Yeah.
Like we had to make some course corrections because that way wasn't going to work.
Yeah. Well, now because of the course corrections God made in your life and just redeeming your life, but music entered at some point, and you're an evangelist, which is the heart of sharing the Lord Jesus with others. But when did music start to enter into the picture? Was it pre-Jesus, post-Jesus?
Yeah. So I had this incredible experience about 10 or so years ago when I started traveling. We moved to Nashville about 12 years ago, and I started traveling and doing different things with Erskin Music. One of those tours I scheduled about 10 years ago was to go up north to Chicago.
All right.
Chicagoland!
Yes.
And then extend beyond that to go into Wisconsin, Milwaukee. That's where my dad was. And I'd never really spent time with him before. I mean, we were familiar enough with each other, but he was in Milwaukee. I was in Texas. We didn't interact very often. We didn't talk about life plans. He always just kind of gave the, you know, almost obligatory, I'm proud of you, and, you know, hope things go well for you. But he was very distant in my life. But when I began to actually spend time around him and watch him, I started thinking, he acts a lot like me. He has some of the same mannerisms that I do. He responds to people the same way. He's kind of smart alecky and all the different things. But I was also recognizing that he's one of those people that, like, the community calls on when they need certain things, and he sings at, you know, funerals and weddings, and he's kind of the guy that does that sort of thing. And so I started talking to my dad. I was like, Dad, you know, you kind of have this music thing going. He's like, son, I used to travel and be in a band, and I didn't even know the scope of what it was that he did, but like they were a great band that he traveled in. He played drums, he sang, and kind of had his own music career and path that was marked out for him. And I thought, oh, so I'm not that original. This is, I thought this was original to me.
Isn't his name Erskin as well?
His name is Erskin as well.
Okay.
And what's cool about that is I was in the African American Music Museum downtown. It's right across the street from the Ryman in Nashville. You've never been there before? You should go there. It's incredible. It's very well done. And they have the section there where they're talking about the influences that led to, you know, black music in America and the sort of the revival that took place after slavery and kind of during slavery when it morphs into, you know, Negro spirituals that then become a varied form of art and music. Well, one of the people that was on the screen, and I had to look it up because my family was going through the museum, was the jazz influence of Erskine Hawkins. And I pulled out my phone and I was like, that was a picture of Erskine Hawkins. My grandfather met Erskine Hawkins in World War II in Germany in a club, and they became friends. I guess they became good friends. Good enough that my grandfather said, if I ever have a son, if I make it back from the war, I'm going to name my son Erskine,
Wow.
Wow.
which is my dad.
Wow.
And so to see Erskine Hawkins there with the trumpet, and there's this musical lineage that I
No
think was
kidding.
pretty much marked out for what it is. I hope I'm not letting you guys down. We're doing the best we can.
Wow.
That is really cool. So obviously you learn that you're not original with this, but at a certain point in time, as you begin to perform and write and do all the different things that a musician does, when did you realize like this is gonna be the path that God has me on for a while?
Oh, that's a good question. I like these guys are good at asking questions. I love it. I love it. So that probably goes all the way back to a time when I was in pastoral ministry in Ferris. And I did various things. I'm kind of Swiss Army style. I've been doing that for a while.
Yep.
And one of the things, and this may be hard for your audience to believe, but maybe not. If you're listening in Texas, you know. One of the deacons in our church farmed about 4,000 acres. And so he took me out to the farm.
Yeah.
Started letting me farm and doing different things. And I remember writing songs on tractors and being in the semi, and I got my guitar in there and I'm playing different things and writing different things. And it just sort of seemed like music was something that I was not only just drawn to, but it happened very easily in my life. So much so that I began to get convicted when I would share these songs. And they're like, hey, where'd you get that song from? Where'd you get this from? I'm like, I don't just write songs. And they're like, people don't just write songs like that. I mean, there's people who make a business out of writing songs, but you write songs all the time. It's like, that's what you do, right? And
No, that's what you do.
Right.
And so
Yes.
it became clear to me that there was something that the Lord was doing in my life. I remember having a conversation. I was a substitute teacher also during the day, farmer by night, youth pastor by weekend. But I had a conversation with some of the students in the class. And I remember I was looking out the window and I was like, guys, I'm going to be famous in music one day. And like some students started laughing, but only some students started laughing because they were like, yeah, it seems like, Mr. Erskine, you're going to do something more than be a substitute teacher in life.
Yeah.
And so I remember those days and just thinking, I think that I'm supposed to do something with this. And I don't know how far it'll go, but we're going to take it as far as we can take it.
Mm-hmm. And you have, like, you trust the Lord every day for what He has for you
For our
musically.
daily bread. Yes.
Yeah. And
George Mueller
literally,
style.
yes. Literally. And then evangelistically. But that music brought you out of Texas to Nashville, Tennessee. Why and how did the Lord say, okay, now it's time to go to Nashville?
It's
Why
a
do you
miracle.
think Nashville?
It's a miracle.
I
Because
mean, I
left the
know
nation
music
of
and all the
I
things.
left the nation of Texas.
You did. You did.
That's a miracle.
There's a lot of music in Austin.
There is.
true.
But
So
they're
why
weird.
here?
Yeah, they're weird in Austin though.
Oh, well, yeah.
I used to live in
the
Austin.
whole Austin weird thing is a real thing.
It's
I
a
keep
real
hearing about
thing.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you've never been there
I
before,
have not.
go to 6th Street, go hang out around East Austin, and you'll figure out why Austin is weird.
Okay.
And they want to keep it that way. And they're doing a great
proud of
job.
it.
They're
Oh,
proud
yeah.
of it.
That's
Yeah,
what I hear.
they're
Yeah.
doing a great job of it. And I lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area before I moved to Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were a lot of people that said, why don't you just, if you want to do music, just move to Austin. It's the live music capital of the world. And I was like, nah, you're not tricking me. I used to live in Austin.
Been there.
I've
Been there,
done that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I moved to Nashville. I think one of the songs that I got on the radio first was a song called Do What You Gotta Do.
Mm-hmm.
And it was getting some radio play and was, starting to pick up a little bit. And I remember being down in Austin for South by Southwest. And I had a bunch of people that were like, man, we're going to burn the music industry down and we're going to do this and we're independent, and da-da-da. And I was kind of like, well, maybe we don't burn the music industry down. Maybe the music industry has some facets to it that, we can appreciate and things that would be beneficial for people and their listening habits. They were like, no, we just want to burn it all down and we do our independent thing. And I was like, that's the weird vibe that I'm talking about, Austin. Y'all are keeping it weird and y'all are keeping yourselves out of the game.
Gotcha.
So Nashville's,
that's why Nashville
yeah, Nashville's the
seemed
spot.
Natural.
Yeah.
Nashville seemed natural.
So you
'Cause I'm a businessman as well.
the business and the game.
Yeah.
Though, right?
Entrepreneurial.
Yes, all the things.
You
Seriously.
hear from so many artists that the Nashville music industry is an industry. It is, in a sense, a game. There is, for a lot of artists, a formula that if you want radio play, if you want this and that, this is the mold that you need to fit.
Yeah.
I don't see you doing that.
Yeah. Just, you know what? I think it's pride. I'm just
You don't fit the mold because of pride?
I think it's pride. I was thinking about that on the way over here. I was like, is it all altruistic? I don't know, folks. Maybe this is confession time. But I think it might be pride in the sense that I think that I know better than they know. Because I get a sense that they think that you're stupid. And I get a sense that people aren't as stupid as they think people are. So when they're playing the same 4 songs over again, that will excite people for a while. Or the same, 10
Sure,
or 15,
wow.
10 or 15 artists. But I think most people are smart enough to figure out, like, there's got to be more music than this. And there might even be some better music than this. But usually we're so busy that we're kind of default to, I turn on the radio and here it is and here's the people and, they're on the marquee. And I just think, man, there's so much stuff that people don't know about that when they know about it and how to get it to them, that can promote some explosive growth as well as where the Spirit of God is moving and doing some things.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know.
Yeah. That's so
I,
real.
I think I know better than they do. But I guess if you look at my bank account and you would say you don't know better than we do.
It depends on the measure of success,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
If it's
So
a
I
financial
moved those
measure,
goalposts.
yeah. If it's financial, maybe not so much.
Yeah,
but
I
if
had a
it's
good devotion today. I
keeping
moved the
gospel,
goalposts.
Right. Yeah. And that's true. But now with streaming, it seems that people are lots more aware that there's other music out there.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly being, what about this artist? Have you heard about this? And I'm like, no. But it's because of being able to interact with the streaming platform. I wonder, though, because you travel so many places. Like, you're getting ready to leave again, right?
Getting ready to head out to Utah tomorrow.
Utah. And you just got back from...
North Carolina
I
and
can't
Texas.
even believe you can keep up with it. I can't keep up with where I went yesterday. And I was still in the same town. So you travel a lot, and the reaction to Erskine music is what? Because maybe they haven't heard of you yet.
Yeah, that is true.
Through streaming platforms.
They have not heard of me. So when I look out, there's this fresh audience that's out there. They're waiting for me to do something. They don't know what's about to happen. And I would say overwhelmingly, it's a very good response that I get from people. I was doing a concert in Texas when I was down there. One of the performances I had, the last of my performances there was at a little town called Avalon, Texas. If they have 300 people in that town, I'm shocked. Avalon, if I've maligned you and you've got 400 people there, then please correct me. But I played at a church. They had a lot of little kids that were there, but they also had the youth group there. There were some adults that were there. And the pastor just comes up to me. He's like, man, a lot of these kids have never been to a Christian music concert before. They've never had anything like this because the Christian music industry is not stopping in Avalon. They're not going to Avalon.
Yeah.
And he said, you don't know what it means for these kids and these families. They never get a chance to experience this. He said, if you're within 500 miles of here, you have an open invitation. He practically gave me the key to the city.
Nice.
He may have been the pastor, the mayor, the fire chief. He may have been everything. But they were just so excited. And I think those kind of experiences are pretty typical because I'm a little off the beaten path. But as people get a chance to hear what's going on there and, they feel connected to things. They feel connected to things that matter in life. And they know by the time that I leave, they're going to know that they're valued and that God is good.
Yeah. Well, I know that is the heartbeat behind what you do. It's super evangelistic. I want to encourage the body for those who do know Christ. But you're grinding. I mean, you're out all around the country, the miles on the car and the vans and everything. I can't even imagine the number of miles you put in a year. How do you not burn out?
Yeah, State Farm can imagine because they called me yesterday and they were like, hey, we need those odometer readings for your discount. Okay, let's see.
2.6 billion.
Exactly. They're like, your
one
car
engine.
still function? I'm like, well, oil change and a little
It's like
prayer.
the shoes in the wilderness and the clothes, right?
Yeah. Burning out. Burning out. I like that question because my wife and I have talked a little bit about that. Because as a father, as a husband, as one who's a family leader, I do feel the sense of I'm traveling and so I'm missing time with my family.
Yeah.
And so when I get back, I also go very hard. I schedule. My wife is like, you schedule things like all the time. Like, how do you go as hard as you go on the road, and then you come home. I'm like, because I don't want to miss any time that I have with my family. And so there's those two things that are going. And my wife was just like, I just need to take a break. Your pace is too fast. And she's like, I feel bad that the only time that I get rest is when you leave. But I was like, it's okay. It's like, I understand. Like, my rhythm is like, we're you know, you like it.
Octane.
You like Kentucky basketball. We're fast breaking this thing.
Yes,
A little
yes,
March
we do.
Madness there.
Yep.
We're fast breaking this thing. But that gives me energy. That doesn't detract energy from me. And I get the sense that, you know, I've had this conversation with people recently. I get the sense that in the 12 years that I've been in Nashville and traveling around the world and doing different things, I only really feel like I've reached about 65 to 70% of my capacity.
Wow.
And so the traveling,
Some people are super high capacity, aren't they?
the pace.
There's
like,
a few.
There's more ideas that I have that I've not been able to materialize yet because the funds may not be in position, or the team may not be in position, or we may not be ready. We may be in a family place in life where we're not ready to make those kind of jumps right now. So I'm just kind of, I feel like I'm idling sometimes and just kind of moving forward.
I've never thought of you as an idler.
Well, marking time. We're marking time.
Wow.
Wait for it, folks. Wait for it.
Here's one thing that I've always appreciated since knowing you for, I don't even know, 4 or 5. Well, if we've been a team for about 5 years, almost, and I've known you longer.
6 years.
Yeah. So about 6 years. So when I was younger, I'm from a small town too, and my grandpa would do the singing, and he and I would sing sometimes, and we'd go different little places, and he just always thought, like, you just go where the Lord leads.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that when I first met you, like Avalon, Texas, you weren't about the star power, the name power. You're like, hey, I'm invited here, then we're going to figure out how to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And you work with what you have. You have low expectations. That's accurate. You have low expectations when you walk in somewhere because you're there to serve.
Well, wouldn't it be high expectations? In a sense of...
Well, what I mean by, like, if 300 people came, great. If 30 people came, you would still give the same concert, the same message.
That's because I have high expectations.
Okay. Got you. Well, it's kind of like, do you lose an hour or gain an hour when the clock moves? Like,
But that's the high expectations because I'm performing for the Lord.
And there it is.
And if I did it, so good last month, it's got to be better this month. It's going to be better this month. The Lord deserves that. I've improved. I've grown. There's been more investment. There's been more prayer.
Yeah.
And so I expect more every time that I go out. Like, I'm going to be prepping and getting ready for Utah today, and I expect great things because we have a great God. I'm going to ask him for great things to happen because we're going to Mormonville, and they need the gospel.
Yeah.
2 by 2, they came to us. My friend and Brendan and I are going out there to talk to them. We got a message for you, Utah.
I love that.
So cool. I see now
There's
why.
the evangelistic
I'm saying,
heart there, right?
I'm saying low and you're saying high, and I get why.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
I see
right.
corrected.
And I think sometimes some of us need to be reminded that we ought to have those high expectations. Whether life has beat us down, the circumstances that the Lord has allowed us to walk through has taken some sort of emotional toll on us. Our expectations are not where they should be.
Now, I'll be the first person to also say that there have been times when the Lord has surprised me because my expectations were not there. Those are actually some of my greatest stories. When I am just kind of going through almost like the motions and having a conversation with somebody and not thinking that anything is going to materialize out of the conversation, and then realizing, wait a minute, I'm in the conversation that I've been praying about and didn't realize it until the end of the conversation. It's like, okay, that's what we've been praying about. This person came, they're sharing their life and what's going on in their lives, and I'm like, oh, I thought I was just going to get a cheeseburger. Like I didn't know that this was, that moment that I'd prayed for. I thought it would look different than this, but. There have been many times like that as well. Yeah, but I'm very ashamed that I should have thought more about going.
You mean you're human?
Yeah.
Stop.
But in our humanity, as you say, so often we see God show up in a certain way and running at the pace you run, doing the things that you do. I would imagine that there are times that you're like, man, I'm a little bit weary. I know you said you're energized by this, but I also know the pace that you grind at. And so are there markers that you look back on and you say, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt I'm doing what God has called me to do because of this?
Yeah, I think that one of the markers, and this, I'm going to go a different way on you.
Okay.
Feel like we're playing chess
Yeah.
and
answer
checkers
a
at the
different
same
question.
time. Playing both games at the same time.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah. The left brain and the right brain are completely engaged. But I think one of those things, because you'd mentioned the music, we're kind of music heavy. That's the tip of the spear. But one of the things that encourages me is the church planting work that we're doing. That's one.
And then there's that.
Yeah.
The church planting and then also foster care. Those are two areas where I think, this might be a true testament of what the Lord really is doing. Because we started, and I say this, with all the glory to the Lord, we started with 4 people 4 years ago. 4 years later, in church planting, that is, we have 3 people. And so I look at that, and my wife was asking me, and she's like, what is there a point where you go, this is not working? This is not. And I go, well, I think that there are certain anchors that the Lord gives me to let me know there's no way I would still be doing church planting if I was just thinking about it in terms of this has got to work, or it's got to work a certain way. And the very fact that I'm energized to do it, in fact, all full disclosure, the message that I was listening to on the way over here was my message.
Oh, that's
that
hilarious.
I preached.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I got
sure.
excited listening to it, and I was like, I remember saying that. I remember studying that.
Yeah.
Okay, that was communicated well. And, I go back for quality control. But why on earth would you still be doing this? Almost, it doesn't make any sense unless the Lord is propelling you and moving you forward in that. Because there's many opportunities to grow weary and, seeing people not respond to things and then not feeling like you're gaining much traction in a particular area. That's easy for you to burn out. But instead, it has done the opposite for me. It has anchored me and said, you know what, maybe there's some areas where I need to be more humble. And the Lord is saying, all right, until we get, all this thing's worked out and you're at a humble place and ready to serve the way that I want you to, we're going to keep it at this size because the damage may be minimal at this point. Maybe it's that, maybe it's not. But the other thing is also foster care. Like, we've been involved in that whole 3-ring circus for about 17 years now. And I think to myself, I grew up as an only child. I had no idea. I had no idea that this even existed until I met my wife's family. I had no desire or even thought about what this would be in life. And the fact that we're still engaged in this, really? It's been the most heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, difficult experience that we've ever had. And there have been times when I've asked my wife, like, surely, we're done, right? This is over. We can't do anymore. We can't take any more punches. We can't take any more water in the boat. We are about to sink. And somehow she continues to rise up, and then I come alongside her in that. Right. And we're still in this, and we're seeing the kids that we have now in our home flourish. And so that's, that's those are the anchors that cause me to go, I don't think in my natural state I want to do this, but I think that there's the Lord is propelling me forward, and I'm seeing something that is altogether different. This is not Erskin. This is beyond Erskin in both of those areas.
That's what surrender looks like. It's what surrender looks like when we say, okay, Lord, my life is yours. The energy that comes from you is because you have said, Lord, my life is yours, and to your glory, I want to go. He's equipped you with music, evangelism, foster care, adoption, and the entrepreneurial. I never can say that word.
Entrepreneurial.
I mean, they're the layers. Like, this is just like almost layer 1 of Erskin and Erskin music, and yet, there's a limit to the showtime. But I want to ask you a final question, and it seems like a simple question. Okay.
This is the one I'm going to stumble on, folks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think you will receive
Ask
it
me
as
about
a simple
theology,
question.
I can.
No. No, it's more simple than that. When you're out on the road, when the family is home, when the church plant and the kids and all the things, and you think, I would love the prayer cover for all the things. What comes to mind immediately? Like, what would you want number 1 prayer request of Erskin?
Oh, I'm probably still in shock from last summer and the whole Carmageddon thing that we had. where we literally lost 4 cars in the course of a summer.
Oh, sure.
And so traveling those kind of miles, and
Yeah.
you know, I had to do something that did never happen before in the history of Erskin music. I had to cancel a show because I could not make it to that show. And folks in Oshkosh, if you're watching this today, I'm coming back. I'm coming back. Just give me time. But those are the kind of things that I think about. You know, you work hard to establish these relationships with people, and they have an expectation. They have an expectation that you're going to be there,
That you'll show up. Yeah.
and that you'll show up, and that, you know, those kind of things will happen. And so I wonder sometimes with the high mileage on our vehicles, I mean, where to go, Lord? But are we going to make it there? I mean, if we don't make it there, it's according to your will, and I understand that. But I would really like to make it there. And so it's, you know, some distance between here and there sometimes. And so, yeah, just pray for, you know, vehicles and transportation, and, you know, kind of be like that old movie, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yep.
We would get there how we
Yes.
can,
Yeah.
but we'd like to take a more direct route at times. So, yeah, that's a
Okay.
prayer request.
All right.
Well, one of the things that I so admire about you and your spirit and what you do is that when God says go, you go. When the invitation is extended, you say yes. In a sense, your yes is on the table, whether it's go play a show, bring a child in for foster care, whether, you know, plant a church, whatever that is. Like, you and your wife have your yes on the table.
Yeah.
And I'm so encouraged by that, and grateful to see you doing what you do. And there is so much more to what Erskin does than what we've been able to cover in just this short time together here. So we want to connect you with Erskin. Links in the show notes, and encourage you to check that out. Erskin Music. Yeah, there's the music, but there's the podcast, and there's a lot more. So we're going to connect you with Erskin. Hope that you'll check that out. Also, you'll check out Raphael's Coffee, because, man, if it wasn't for Raphael's Roastery and their coffee, that's what allows me to run at about like 1/10 of your pace, my friend. 1/10 of your
baby.
pace.
Still doing it.
So
I
you can
love
check
that.
out links
I
to
love
all of
That's
that.
great.
And hope you'll do that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe if you've not done that yet. And join us next time to be our +1.